I just did record to the cloud. Okay. Welcome to the introductory webinar on the NSGC Public Policy Committee and position statements. My name is Andy Faucett. I am a genetic counselor at Geisinger working in research. I served 5 years on the NSGC Public Policy Committee, including 1 year as chair of the committee. I do not have any disclosures to report. On the screen now, you will see the learning objectives for this webinar. My goal is to help you understand the importance of the NSGC Public Policy Committee and position statements created by that committee. I'll point out opportunities for you to get involved and to share your thoughts in the development of public policy statements, and I'll describe some of the discussions as NSGC has developed policy statements in the past and the topics that were covered. On the screen now, you'll see definitions for both public and policy from dictionary.com. For NSGC, public means the community of genetic counselors and the community of patients, those that we work with professionally and those that we serve. And policy means our viewpoint on a specific topic and how we act in relation to that topic. So another way of thinking of public policy is a community course of action, in this case, NSGC's course of action. So the Public Policy Committee is developing statements around NSGC's course of action. NSGC has a committee which is charged with developing position statements in collaboration with the NSGC board. Anyone can suggest a topic that they feel needs a statement from the organization. In general, these statements should have a professional or a patient focus and should be on topics important to genetic counseling and not general personal or healthcare topics. Our goal is not to address healthcare needs in general or to solve the healthcare issues that occur today, but to focus on things directly related to the profession of genetic counseling and to the patients that we serve. On the screen are topics where the NSGC Public Policy Committee has developed position statements for our profession. I chose the ones on the screen that required a lot of conversation and were controversial for our profession. Reproductive freedom in red is an issue that most but not all of our members support. It is a topic that our society cannot agree on, so it is not surprising that NSGC members do not all agree. Also, it has been a topic where we needed to consider the political impact as we try to gain federal CMS recognition for our profession. We need to make sure that we consider our personal role in supporting this issue versus the need for the profession to speak out. As a result, the Public Policy Committee has recommended that counselors speak up loudly around this issue, whereas we have not updated the reproductive freedom statement in a number of years. Another one up there is data sharing. Some of our members work in labs that share data, and some work in labs that do not share data. So here, for this topic, we needed to look at the impact on our patients. From the patient perspective, the more data we have access to, the better we can help our patients. So as a profession, NSGC supports data sharing because it improves the way that we can care for our patients. Another one up there is non-invasive prenatal screening or non-invasive prenatal testing. Even the name of what you call it is controversial. There's lots of controversy. Many of our members work in companies that develop the technology, yet we know that the marketing for these tests has driven the market, not the science. Many of us feel that the tests were a little ahead of their time and that sometimes the marketing didn't clearly describe the risk and the benefits. But again, one that we felt that it was very important that NSGC have a statement about. You also see direct access to genetic testing, or DTC. It's not going away. It's something that we need to find a way to help patients with. And as an organization, we need to have a statement that talks about how we relate to the DTC community and to patients who have undergone DTC testing. Position statements are the voice of our profession. They need to make a strong statement, but they also need to be concise. Sometimes we will agree with other genetic professional societies, and sometimes we will differ. In general, our statements are focused on how we work with patients. NSGC has a track record of creating statements early to raise our visibility and ensure that we are part of the conversation. Our process is designed to allow the Public Policy Committee and the NSGC board to react quickly, if necessary, while we also have a deliberative process for issues where quick response is not required or multiple discussions are required. The goal is to give the genetic counselor viewpoint and explain how we can uniquely help patients. Position statement should match the NSGC mission and vision. You'll notice that the public policy is in our mission. The NSGC mission states, the NSGC advances the various roles of genetic counselors in healthcare by fostering education, research, and public policy to ensure the availability of quality genetic services. Our vision says, integrating genetics and genomics to improve health for all. Helping the community understand why genetic counseling and genetic care are important are part of our mission and vision, and also part of what public policy statements are designed to do. To be effective, position statements should not declare that everyone needs to see a genetic counselor. We cannot write these in such a way that they're self-serving or they're meant to increase our business or increase that. We have to think of them as, what do we provide that's unique? What do we provide that can help the patient? And explain what's needed, and then we can go to explaining that a genetic counselor can provide those services. The goal is to explain the services that patients need and that GCs can provide that role. Others may also be able to provide. We should always put patients first. And this is similar to licensure. If you studied licensure, you know that some states have sunshine laws. If you create licensure for genetic counselors and no one is ever brought up for acting inappropriately, then do you really need a license? So same thing with our public policy statements. Are they really protecting patients in a way that provides the best care possible for them? Position statements can also be your voice. How do you explain our role in a given situation? They also make great elevator answers. If you're ever and you need a quick response, you need to be able to explain our viewpoint on the topic. Because policy statements are meant to be short, it makes them very easy to use in this situation. The goal is, what do genetic counselors bring to the table that others don't? What do we do best? Where are we needed, and where can we add to the patient experience and add to healthcare and improve healthcare? On the screen, you'll see the currently posted NSGC position statements, the history, the NSGC voice, starting with reproductive freedom, which was posted in July of 2010, to the genetic testing of children, the adoption process, and prenatal testing for adult onset conditions, revisions, which were posted in July of 2018. These are all on the NSGC website. I would encourage you to look at them, read them, understand what the organization statements are. Do you know what NSGC says about these topics and why? Do some need to be updated? That's where you have an opportunity to provide your voice. If you think some of the current statements need adjustment, let the Public Policy Committee know. The Public Policy Committee welcomes your input. Over time, we've had many situations where we had difficult decisions that I discussed earlier, reproductive freedom being one of those. You must remember that the ultimate goal is to provide the unique NSGC genetic counselor viewpoint, not a general society viewpoint. Incidental findings, do we report these or not? Which ones do we report? Do we require labs to give this option? Do we make it optional? Prenatal testing for adult conditions. Though almost all of our societies say that this should be done with a lot of caution and shouldn't be done in many situations, we all know cases where we have thought that it might be in the best interest of the patient and the family to consider doing it. So we need a statement that says that. Direct-to-consumer testing. It is the first exposure to genetics for many patients. So how do we support those patients even if we disagree with direct-to-consumer testing? Human genome editing. This was an opportunity actually where NSGC could partner with ASHG and other groups, and we released a joint statement. That joint statement had more of a research and a world-large picture focus. So we also felt that NSGC needed to release an additional statement that was patient-focused, that had the viewpoint of the patient and the genetic counselor relationship. Workplace wellness. How do we balance the genetics that the value that genetics could add to workplace wellness, getting people to pay attention to their family history, getting them to consider testing for hereditary breast cancer, hereditary colon cancer, yet also protecting them from discrimination. How do we balance these? What's our statement to make sure that both sides of the equation are discussed? And then disability. How do we support and recognize the disability community while also offering prenatal testing for some of the conditions in the disability community? Again, difficult decisions, and ones that as a member of the Public Policy Committee or a member of NSGC, you have the opportunity to put your viewpoint in and to participate in the discussion. Next, I'm going to provide some comments from former NSGC presidents who have used the position statements. The first is from Joy Larson-Hadel, who was NSGC president in 2015. The Public Policy Committee is very important to help NSGC assimilate issues on the landscape, investigate them, development statements, and educate others inside and outside of the organization. The president is a spokesperson for NSGC. I relied heavily on the NSGC position statements to guide me in media interviews so that my remarks were grounded in the opinions of the organization and the membership rather than my personal opinions. The committee was invaluable to me to help think broadly and consider the multiple facets for the issues facing the genetic counseling profession. During my presidency, CRISPR hit the mainstream media. NSGC Public Policy Committee delved in quickly to assimilate information and create an organizational statement which was invaluable to me with media interviews. In addition, the nimbleness of NSGC's Public Policy Committee helped launch NSGC into an active role in the development of an international position statement on CRISPR, the one I mentioned, the ASHG combined statement. This was such an important process and critical for genetic counselors to be at the table during these conversations. Next are comments from Janine Austin, NSGC president in 2016. To me, the position statements that the Public Policy Committee generates are the foundational content of how NSGC speaks to the outside world as a single coherent entity. They are an expression of the values of NSGC as an organization. To those of us charged with representing NSGC in the media, these documents form the backbone of the content of what we say. We are just the talking heads or the mouthpieces through which the content you develop is delivered. Your work is critical. And here you see that the presidents, both current, past, and hopefully future, really value the work of the Public Policy Committee and the position statements that we create. And lastly, from Mary Freivogel, NSGC President 2017. In 2017, news feeds were full of stories about direct-to-consumer genetic testing. As NSGC President, I was interviewed countless times about this topic, often with very little notice or time to prepare. I found myself consistently referencing the Public Policy Committee's carefully and expertly crafted position statement on direct access to genetic testing. It was extremely valuable to have a written document that concisely and thoughtfully expresses NSGC's stance on this particular issue. I often use this statement as a starting point with the reporter, and it would serve to clearly outline our organization's position. From there, the reporter could ask follow-up questions related to the statement, which set the stage for a very efficient and productive discussion. The Public Policy Committee's work on this and other position statements serves an essential purpose for the leaders and members of NSGC. Just as Mary uses in engaging with national and international media, as I mentioned, you can also use this if someone asks you questions, that good elevator statement as you're explaining how these things move forward. Now I want to walk you through how position statements are crafted. The first is a suggestion is made. The suggestion can be made by a member of the Public Policy Committee. It can be made by the general membership, but that suggestion of a policy that needs to be developed would go to the Public Policy Committee. They would review it, tweak it a bit, put it in an organized format, and then it goes to the board for review to see if this is a statement that the board, a subject that the board believes NSGC could benefit from a statement on. Sometimes there's push and pull between the committee and the board as we make the decision, yes, this is something that we do want a statement on. Once the board has said the concept is good, then a work group is formed. Most members of the work group will come from the Public Policy Committee, but the Public Policy Committee also looks to see are there additional areas of expertise amongst our profession? Are there other individuals who would be beneficial to add to this discussion, and they may be added to the work group? That work group will then draft a policy statement, which will go back to the larger work group, will be discussed, crafted, amended, changed a little bit, and then again you'll end up with a draft which is forwarded to the board for review. And sometimes this happens once, sometimes it happens twice, but again the work group and the board working together to come up with a statement that they believe says what NSGC should say on this particular topic. Then that statement is released for membership review. The comments are invited, and then that review comes back to the work group. The work group needs to make sure that they've considered all the issues that were brought up by the membership. It doesn't mean that they have to agree with the comments that were brought up, but they should have at least discussed them and be certain that the statement addresses those issues in the way that the committee feels is best. It's then sent back to the board for final approval, and then it is published both on the web and in NSGC publications. The goal is a clear, short statement, not necessarily a consensus statement, because I mentioned earlier, sometimes with some of the controversial issues, there may not be complete agreement amongst our profession. But what is best for the profession of genetic counseling and for our patients? So again, even when you look at the feedback from membership, it doesn't have to be that you incorporate everyone's comments, because if you do, you may have a statement that really doesn't say anything. So again, you want to make sure that you've approached all those issues, they've all been considered, and then you want that clear, short statement that the board is comfortable saying is NSGC's statement on this particular topic. Now I want to talk about some challenges. The Public Policy Committee's work is never finished. Current issues that come to mind for me are the use of DNA testing in crime solving. It's been all over the paper recently about the long-lost murderers and rapists and others who were caught using DNA testing that either came from ancestry testing. And first, do we have any, as a society, do we have a thought about that? Is that okay? Is there some information that people should need to know? And then that probably going to be expanded to DNA data that was collected in clinical testing and maybe even in research. How do we feel about this DNA data being used in crime solving? Is this something that the organization should support? Is this something that we should bring up some cautions for? This is, again, as a topic that I think the organization will probably be grappling with in the next year or two. In Australia, sports testing, DNA testing for sports athletic ability is very common and popular. Do we need to have a statement on that? It may become more common in the U.S. Is there a role for NSGC in this place, or is this something that we should leave to the laboratories and the people who do genetic testing? And then at Geisinger, we've done a lot of work recently on population screening for things like hereditary breast and ovarian cancer, Lynch syndrome, familial hypercholesterolemia. We believe that the data indicates that it may be time to do population screening for these conditions. That's what I believe from Geisinger, but what should NSGC state? Is there a public policy statement needed there? Are we ready? You may remember that that Mary Claire King in her LASCA address talked about population screening for HBOC. So again, is it time for NSGC to have a statement about that? And then lastly on this slide, cascade testing. We all know that testing the other family members once you've identified an individual with a pathogenic variant is difficult. Our classic method is to give them a letter to share. Sometimes they can't share it, the families don't get it, other things. Others have proposed actually reaching out to these individuals, what's called direct contact. Should NSGC have a statement that's patient-focused, related to profession, about direct contact? So these are some of the issues that I think that the Public Policy Committee could be dealing with in the future. I share these examples for you to see that the work of the committee can be very challenging, and it's a great opportunity for you to be involved in helping shape the profession. Now, in the future, I think there are even more challenging discussions that are going to come up. The first would be around behavioral genetics. As we get more and more people tested, more and more exomes and genomes in databases, it's going to be easier to see the associations between some behavioral activity, some things, and potential lifestyle choices and other things. And of course, I can't wait until we have the first trial where somebody says, my genetics made me do it. Is there a place there for NSGC to have a statement about that? Is there a role? There may not be, but it's a discussion that will probably need to happen in the future. Pharmacogenomics is becoming more available and easier. How do we relate that to people in treatment for addiction? What's the role? Should it give some people some forgiveness, others? So again, a lot of discussion around that. And then things like intelligence. Should genetic testing for intelligence be used in college admission or jobs or other things? These are issues that are going to come up in society as more and more people have genetic testing, as we do more and more research. And as a profession, we're going to need to be able to make some statements about these. And on the bottom of the slide, I have to remember the eugenic history. Remember that genetics in general was very active in eugenics. So the outside world still sees us with a bit of through a microscope or through a lens that has eugenics as part of the background. So I'd encourage you to think about that as you think about the public policy statements and the position statements that NSGC needs to develop. And if you don't remember much about the eugenics movement, on the right hand of this slide, it talks about the Dolan DNA Learning Center at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, and has a lot of information about the eugenics movement and the role that genetics played in that movement. How you can help? The first is participate in the discussion. If you think there's an issue that NSGC needs to talk about, needs to have a position statement on, please talk to one of the members of the Public Policy Committee. Please forward your ideas, proposed topics, and then consider joining the committee yourself. They're always looking for new members, always looking for people who are willing to challenge the difficult issues and move the profession forward, making sure that we have statements that are needed, as mentioned by the presidents when they're interviewed and other things, if they know how our society stands on a given issue. I want to thank you for joining me today in this presentation. My information is now on the screen. If you have any questions or if I can help you in the future, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for attending the webinar.